All right, everyone. Good morning, and thank you so much for joining us today. It looks like we have attendees who are still trickling in. I am Emily Falapino, President and CEO for the Temecula Valley Chamber of Commerce, and we are so excited to share today's webinar on mastering the pivot, which was inspired partly by COVID, but also by my fond memories on the basketball court. So with us today is a guest presenter, Paul Nolta with SBDC. I will give him probably a more fitting introduction in just a couple of moments. For now, I'm going to just give you some quick etiquette and invite you to engage in the chat box with us. You are viewing a webinar today via Zoom, which means only the presenters can be seen on screen. If you are an attendee who's just tuning in, don't worry, we can't see you and we shouldn't be able to hear you either. But we do want to know you're there. So please use the chat box to type in your name, your business, and your contact information, or maybe your website or social media handles, whatever you'd like to share, however you feel comfortable. Throughout the presentation today, I think you're going to have lots of questions and ideas. And we invite you to use the Q&A box to submit those questions and answers, because at the very end of our time, or at the end of our presentation today, Paul will be fielding your questions. And our goal is really that you walk away from this webinar with really practical tools and ideas with how to pivot your own business. So with that, let me just give a quick introduction into the topic and why we chose this. We all know that we are living in a really crazy and challenging time. And when COVID first hit, I remember having conversations where we thought, maybe this will last a few weeks. And here we are months and months down the road without really an end in sight. And at the Chamber, we really want to encourage you to always be forward thinking, even though that's very difficult. And it's sometimes hard to see your way, see the forest through the trees sort of thing. So we want to bring you the perspective and the tools to see your business differently and to see yourself through these times. So we want to capitalize on what you can do without overemphasizing what you can't do. And so Paul is going to be sharing with us some really practical takeaways and ideas on how to find what you can do amid an environment that will tell you everything that you cannot do. So quick anecdote on the idea of pivoting. When I usually think of the term pivot, it takes me back to the basketball court. I didn't associate pivot with business before COVID. And when you play basketball and you're running down the court and you're trying to get to that end basket, sometimes a challenge or someone will stop you in your tracks, and sometimes you just stop yourself, but you can't move anymore. And when you get stuck, one of the best ways to get yourself unstuck is to pivot. And the pivot is essentially allowing you to keep one foot in place, but the rest of your body can maneuver and turn to get that ball into the basket, whether it's to a friend, a colleague, a teammate, whatever it is. And so at the Temecula Valley Chamber of Commerce, we want you to think of us as the one foot you have firmly planted on the court. We are here, and I encourage you to reach out to us through this time with whatever your challenge or your question is, because I promise you we have a resource, a support, or an answer to help you. And one of our biggest allies, resources, and support systems is the Small Business Development Center. And Paul Nolta is one of our best friends and colleagues at the SBDC. And TVCC has actually partnered with them on a previous webinar series, which I think we need to relaunch. But anytime that we feature Paul and his team, they give and share so many insightful pieces of wisdom that will create an impact for you. So we are extremely excited to welcome Paul to the screen today. I'm going to go ahead and stop sharing my screen and invite Paul to give you his welcome and presentation, and then I'll join you again at the end for some Q&A. Take it away, Paul. Paul, you're on mute. There you go.
All right. Good morning, everybody. Thanks for joining. And excited to be here. We're going to have a conversation this morning about the pivot. I know a lot of us have heard about it, and it's a hot topic on conversation lately. So let's jump into this thing. What is this pivot? Um, the reality is the pivot is really nothing new. It's something that we should, as entrepreneurs, be very familiar with, and know that we are constantly trying to adapt and move our business forward. And so, again, here's some examples of pivoting. Right. So Wrigley, they started out selling soap, and that gave away free baking powder, and then baking powder that gave away free gum. To now they're selling gum. Right. Avon started out selling books, and they found that women like to read books, and they're a lot smarter than us, and they wanted to attract more of these smart women to read their books, so they started giving free samples of perfume, which then pivoted their entire line to be a cosmetic company. Suzuki did looms to companies before they started making motorcycles. A lot of you may not have known that. For example, Shopify, they did snowboards. They started out as a snowboard company, found that they could sell online, and then created that online platform. So pivoting, and as far as life of an entrepreneur, is a never-ending thing. It's something that we constantly doing. But let's really discuss what it is and what it needs to be in order for it to work well for you, the business owner. So pivoting is really a lateral move that creates this value, but it's important that this value is something that your customer needs, but the business can share in order to benefit both. Without that, we end up in a struggle where we're doing things that are not going to be profitable and not move our business forward. So in essence, we are getting paid to solve problems. And if you find yourself relying on the product side, trying to sell your product, but not really trying to sell this problem, this is a much harder sell. Selling the product by itself is a lot harder than selling a solution. And, so let's look at this. So let's look at how this pivot has affected in the part of the pandemic side. So we're going to look at some examples. One of those is Firehouse Subs. So Firehouse Subs currently is having record sales. They have had the last 3 months that are off the charts that haven't compared with anything that they've seen before. Look at their model. What was it prior to COVID? So Firehouse Subs is a fresh, it's hot, it's got cheeses on it, it's got, all that gooey yumminess that's not wrapped. It's not wrapped like a Subway. When you go to a Firehouse Subs, you get it in a basket. It comes out and it's fresh, and that's what you expect, and that's what you want from that Firehouse Subs. They have 1,200 units across the US, but only 60 of their units actually has a drive-through, because again, their model was never takeout. So how is it? How are they able to destroy their sales and just blow it out of the water? Well, they looked and they adapted and they listened to what their customers' needs are, right? Because again, in order for us to pivot, we have to have a problem, and then we have to have a solution for that problem. And that's what they did. So the first one was that they stayed the course. They never closed. And so how does that benefit the customer? Well, it benefits the customer because there's so much uncertainty right now. We don't know what's open, what's closed, what hours, who's doing what. And when we have that craving and we have that want, we always know, hey, you know what? Firehouse is open. We know what they're doing. And so they stayed the course. They opened, they communicated, they addressed that need. Yes, they did the curbside and pop-up drive-through, but they found by looking at their POS and looking at their data that the customer's demand was still to come in, place an on-site order, and then leave the premises. So that problem that you could see is if you were to do that takeout and wrap that hot, steamy sandwich, what happens when you wrap something hot and steamy? Turns into gooey bread, mushy stuff that's not appealing. And so with the customer demand wanting to come in, the first thing they had dealt with was interior design. They did not want it to look like you were walking into a hazmat, biochemical, caution tape, cones, signs, all of that stuff that we're kind of starting to see to direct us through there. So environment is important. They wanted to sell their environment. So they adjusted their interior to look as if, you know, we're not walking into a biohazard environment. We're walking in to place an order. Yes, they're safe. We, you know, more importantly, safe, but also look good. Their packaging took an adjustment. Prior to the COVID thing, you know, you couldn't get a straw. So I'm assuming that those consumers still wanted to be eco-friendly, and they addressed that. They found a material that let the product breathe, would not turn their bread into mushy mess, that still is compost, microwavable, handles the grease, can cut on it, and they've been able to pull it off quickly. And then finally is community driven. You know, Firehouse Subs has a public safety foundation that they launched when they first came in, and they promote that heavily within their communities, first responders. And this is all packaged together, listening to their customer, creating that value, building the brand that aligns with what they built, and solving and having a solution is what is driving these sales through the roof for Firehouse Subs. Let's take a look at one more. Spotify. You would think Spotify wouldn't be having a trouble, right? Because we as consumers are locked up in our homes and we need an outlet, and we want to listen to music, download, create playlists. All of that is true, but we, the listeners, the customer base, who we think is the customer, is not really what generates profits for Spotify, right? We use Spotify, 90% of us is free. We download it free, create our playlists, and go on. So unlike Apple, where you're not having to pay per play, we're simply free users. So the true customer of Spotify is the businesses that want to advertise. But because of this pandemic, advertisers are cutting, and that's cutting into their revenue stream. So what do they have? So what does Spotify have? They have the audience, which is us. They have a large volume of consumers. But what they don't have is somebody yet willing to pay for those consumers because they're cutting back. So how do they pivot? They pivot by seeing if they can satisfy additional customers within that business model. And what they've found was that, yes, who else wants access to all of these listeners? The podcasters, right? So they did a pivot, switched to a podcasting platform, and within that first month had 150,000 podcasts uploaded, and now have signed exclusive deals for original content. And so I know you guys are right now probably saying, yeah, Paul, these are big national chains, you know, it's easy for them. They can make, you know, make those adaptations, and they have the money to do so. But the reality is it's much harder for the big chains to do these pivots, because we as small business owners, local business owners, we don't need to go get corporate approval. We don't need to put it through, you know, 10 chains of command in order we can make that move. We can make that move today, and we can do it quickly, and we can do it faster than those guys. And so I like to shop local, and I'm a big fan of shopping local. And so here's some examples, and I'm sure you guys have some of these. And so share them as we're going through, if you can relate to some of these things. But California Distilleries makes a very great product. So prior to COVID, I frequent the place. I like their vodkas. I like their lemonade moonshine, but I really love their bourbon. If you're a old-fashioned lover like myself, definitely go try their bourbon. During that front side of the pandemic, what was happening? Hand sanitizers and toilet paper were impossible to find, right? And so what they did was staying with their product alignment, staying with their quality image. They spun off and made a hand sanitizer. They were able to easily do that, but they bottled it and packaged it to where the fit and finish on it was in line with their product. And not only were we buying it, I mean, I was a hero when I came home with my bourbon and the hand sanitizer. My wife's like, where did you get this? But because she liked it, and she liked the way it was packaged, and because it was local, made local, and Temecula pride, she ended up buying it as gifts and was sending it to friends as well. And so again, a simple pivot like that added value, made an upsell, allowed me, the consumer, to enjoy that brand and be proud of that local brand. Another example is using and preparing ingredients and offering multiple supply chains for a consumer to enjoy your product. So the unfortunate part with the restaurants is what they're dealing with right now is that at one point it was a complete shutdown or it was takeout only. So that channel is tough. And then it's at half capacity. And the name of the game for restaurants is turning tables. So if I'm a restaurant and I have 30 tables, I got to manage myself to where I know I got to turn those tables 3-4 times per breakfast, per lunch, per dinner. When you cut those tables in half and tell me now I only have 15 tables, now I got to turn them twice as, almost 3 times as much. But is there another way to fill a table without actually having that table, right? So can we get people to adapt to order more takeout? Can we get people to adapt to buy raw ingredients and take them home and make them? That has been a very cool thing for the mill. The mill was doing and still is doing these pizza kits, right? My kids love them. It's like a weekly thing where we buy the supplies, order a couple raw pizzas, it comes in the dough, and we flatten it all out and add our ingredients, throw it in the cooker, and off we go to so it's not only an entertaining thing, but it's a brand thing. It aligns with their brand, maintains that product, adds convenience, entertainment to me and my family, to enjoy that product, right? And expanding and reducing product lines is another one. Kitchen Fantasy, right down the street from the chamber. I had no idea they existed, but I am a big barbecue guy. I like to barbecue, and I ran out of pink butcher paper. So I like to wrap my brisket in pink butcher paper when I finish it off. Normally, I would get that on Amazon, but Amazon's back ordered for 4 months to get that pink butcher paper. These guys had it. Was it a little more? Absolutely, but I want it today. I don't want to wait. So their supply chain increased on what they normally had. So when I went in there for that product, I found out that they also have the stuff that's hard to get right now, the yeasts, the flours, the sugars. I mean, so not just very cool kitchen gadgets, but supplies to finish it off. So I was excited to have that here locally, and I will continue to buy it there locally from this point on. One more example before we move on is the beauty supply, right? The hair salons, they've getting hit pretty hard. I mean, if I want to get my hair cut, I got to go hide down the back alley and give a secret handshake to get in and get my hair done. But in all fairness, they'd have to close down. And so what is something else that they can do? And so the needs as this thing was dragging on is, and I'm going to pick on the ladies, I'll pick on my wife. So the hairs, as their hair grows out, it begins to change color. There's this root thing that's happening that I had no idea who I was living with for a while. So, what do? Do you go to the drugstore and buy these products that you're not really sure what it's going to turn out? And so what this particular salon did was say, you know what? I have these products sitting here. Let me make up these kits. So very similar to the home style kit of pizza, it's a home style kit for your hair. She has all your recipes in her database. She says, add 2 colors of this, 1 color of that, and bingo bango, your hair's back in it'll last you for a few more weeks. So not only was it just that, but it was aligning with the brand. So it was a quality video that came package dropped at your door. It had informational packets on what's going on in the hair industry and how and when they think they're going to open and what precautions they're taking to make their salon ready for when it comes back. So took that opportunity to add that value added service, add that convenience, add that quality, add that reassurance that I know, that I care about you, and that, we're going to get through this and you're going to come back and we're going to knock it out of the park. So excellent local examples of quick adaptable pivots. And I'm sure that each of you on this thing today have your own local, and I would love to see them all. So now it's like, okay, well, great. How do we do this? And where do we start? And so the first thing, and this is something you should have been doing prior to this COVID thing, is what value are you selling? So you look at your website, get out your business card and ask yourself, are you selling value? Are you selling value? Or are you selling a product? because that's really what's going to make the difference for you. And so what is special about your product or service? You know, what gives you the potential to do this thing really well? You know, skills, what makes it different? And yes, these are big questions, and yes, these are not easy things to answer. And sometimes it seems overwhelming, like we're trying to climb this mountain to get this thing done. So how do we break this down, and how do we make it manageable and break it into these small steps so we can move this forward and be able to answer these questions? And so how we do this here in our office is we start with the basics of why we as consumers buy. So we're going to break this up into two parts. We're going to go pre-COVID, and then we're going to deal with COVID issues. Okay. So pre-COVID, what is it that you are offering your customer, right? We as consumers do not purchase things for what they were invented for. Yes, I know that sounds weird, but we don't do it, right? We don't buy shoes because it protects our feet as we walk across hot asphalt. That's not why we bought it for something else. We bought it for status. We bought it for security. We bought it for recognition. We bought it for lifestyle. So these are the basic needs, and the translation. So all the big companies attack these first, right? So we have these basic needs: food, water, shelter, companionship. We have to have it. We then want security, and we want protection. And then when we want status and approval and the need to belong, and then recognition, and then lifestyle, right? And so let's take an example of this. So let's stick on the shoe thing. What does Nike sell? Does Nike sell a shoe? No. Nike sells a product that they market that if I purchase this, I am going to belong, right? I'm going to have this status thing, and I am going to belong to an elite group of athletic warriors, and I am going to run faster, jump higher, be better than I was if I don't buy these shoes, right? Also, you know, the shoe line, recreation, hiking boots, the lifestyle, right? It goes into this thing, and this is what it does. Rolex, does Rolex sell time? No. Right? If all I wanted to do was time, I could go buy a $2 watch at the gas station that'll tell me time. No, Rolex sells that need to belong, that status. You know, we can go on and on. So you know, Harley Davidson and Starbucks coffee are two models. Is the coffee really worth $10? And some of you may say yes, but I think it's more of a belonging, right? Same thing with Harley. You know, I can buy a motorcycle, but if I really want a motorcycle, I buy a Harley to belong to that club, that belonging, you know, so at the basic root of what we want to identify is, where does your product or service fit into the basic needs? And are we promoting those? Are we advertising that? Are we fulfilling it? Because I'm telling you, every national chain does this, right? I mean, companionship, sex, that's what they sell. You know, Axe body spray, it's simply a body wash, but that's not how they market that stuff, right? This is what drives our basic brand, and this is the starting point. From here, we then jump over to the added stuff, the convenience, the quality, the bundling. Do we bundle product with the service? Is there multiple things that we can add together to make it convenient and accessible? So we go into stages, but this, we peel it back and we focus on the basic needs of why we as consumers, you know, consume things. Now we can jump in and say, all right, let's add these added problems that have come about that we need to solve. So what are these added problems that are jumping out at us for this pandemic? Well, we have a new customer. This customer has a stay-at-home lifestyle, right? Because of the uncertainty and whether we wear a mask, don't wear a mask, who's open, when are they going to be open, what are they going to have on the shelves? We're going to find ourselves, and we're starting to find ourselves making fewer trips, but filling up bigger baskets. We don't want to go multiple times. We have a remote worker who now is changing seasonality, shorter supply chains. We have this social distancing thing that we got to deal with. We have a consumer state of mind. Some are pro-mask, some are non, some want, right? So we got this massive consumer uncertainty. We have this enhanced use of technology that we're going to have to put in play. We have a need for customers to get in and get out, right? Which is completely opposite of the retail model before. So think about it. Retail model before was get as many people in and keep them there for as long as we can, right? Costco does the little meals. You can go there and go around and eat if you want to. Lululemon had classes. A lot of, Williams and Sonoma, same thing, tastings. So a lot of those things were designed to keep people there longer in order for that consumption. That's completely flipped. We need to get them in and get them out to make room for the next person because of that capacity thing, that social distancing thing that we're dealing with. So how are we going to do that? We have that need to, and because of this, these shoppers that are coming in and coming out need to be your most valuable shoppers. How do we get them in? The ones that truly want to buy and to buy more. And seasonality is completely out the window. This thing is turned upside down, right? So we had that school starting. We knew people were going to buy clothes. That's out the window. When is lunchtime? I mean, we have people working at home now that they are not forced to that 12 o'clock, it's lunchtime. They can go at 2, they can go at 3, they can go for brunch, right? So they have this seasonality that we normally could count on is completely out the window. And then we're finding that because, again, this uncertainty in what to expect, that these folks, and this number is starting to continue to grow from here, is that they are sticking to a primary store because they don't want to, again, is there going to be a line? Is there going to be openings? What kind of process am I going to face? We don't like change. We like to know what we're dealing with. And so what's happening is they're falling into these patterns of sticking to one store to get that through, right? So now is what we have here is we have, okay, Paul, you got this basic needs assessment that we need to comply with. And then we got all these other new problems coming at us with this pandemic. So how do we sit down and look at our own personal businesses and apply some sort of methodology to make this happen and make it work and make that pivot happen, right? And so what we do is we tell you, and let's get out a whiteboard, let's get out a glass of wine if we need, and let's start with your customer's purchase cycle. And so this is the process that we're using to help you understand your value proposition, understand your procedure that you're going to implement within your business to make your customers value you, right? And so every business, I don't care what type of business you are, you have what's called a customer purchase cycle. And in this customer purchase cycle, all we're doing is examining every single step that your customer has to deal with in order to have a complete transaction with you, okay? Excuse me. And so what we're gonna do is we're gonna pick a tough one. And we're gonna do this example. We're gonna do a movie theater, right? We've all experienced it, we've all gone to it. And to be quite honest with you, prior to COVID, this movie theater experience was already on a dying path, right? They were trying to reinvent themselves pre-COVID. So what is that experience pre-COVID? So pre-COVID, we decide that we want to go and experience a movie. So we pick that location, right? We then go and we find that parking spot. We then go and we stand in line and get our ticket. We then go, maybe use the restroom, get some food, wander around and find a seat, and then finally experience that movie. So what we got to do, so, again, we as the entrepreneur, the person running this business, because we're not only the janitor, the salesman, the bookkeeper, all of these things all at once, sometimes we lose sight of some of these steps. But if you flip that and become the consumer, you are laser focused on every one of these steps, because if a single one of these is broken or not working, what happens? You have a negative experience, right? And you giving bad Yelp reviews, you're unhappy. I mean, that all it takes is one. And so the challenge here is saying, okay, this is status quo. This is how it works. So pre-COVID, they were already working on this, right? They were already saying, okay, can we do some sort of a better parking, more parking, lighted parking, secure parking? Can we send the ticket to your phone? You know, this one here is going to be more important now for every business going forward. Cleanliness, right? What are we doing to make sure that's there? What type of food operations? They were making more comfy, big chairs, changing that experience, right? So, post-COVID, I don't know. What do you guys think? Is a movie theater dead? Is there any way that we could get ourselves, us consumers, back to a movie theater? What would it take? What would it take for that experience? I mean, right now we are, going back to that list, right? We're in this mode. We are starving for entertainment outlets. We are, as a consumer, what's it going to take for us to be back into this? So by looking through each one of these steps, so we go, okay, well, pick a location. Well, does the movie theater have to really happen at the movie theater, right? Can they look at a voice on demand or pay-per-view model? It's been around for years, right? How many times have you gone to a friend's house who had the big fight, or the big fight pay-per-view, or those type of things? Can it be done? Can we look at theater food to go, right? What's a movie experience without theater food? I don't know what they do to that popcorn, but I can't replicate it at home. Can they package it to go with that voice, that video on demand? Can they do drive-in style, right? They got big 4 walls around there. What type of model here? They already have a captive advertising campaign. I mean, the last time I went to a movie theater, it's 15 minutes of ads from local companies. So couldn't they do the same thing with a drive-in? Couldn't they get sponsors to sponsor the local community drive-in? That's something that might be something to look into for them. Could they do private group viewing in addition to the drive-in, right? How cool would that be? 20 of your closest friends have the whole movie theater yourself? I don't know. Would it work? Would it get you back in? What type of safety measures would they have to do in place to get us back in? Could it be done? I think it could. Can they, reduce the amount of time standing in the lobby, maybe not let people in and say, look, you got to hang out in your car until right at opening time, or space the seating out, or, they were already doing that anyways, is making the big comfy room. Mask requirements, distancing. I mean, there's things that can be done that I don't feel that the movie theater is dead. I think they could do it. I don't know what you guys think. But the point here is that every business model has steps, right? And these points are extremely important for you as a business owner. And there is no step that is too small, right? I am currently trying to get a fence replaced around my property. And I've called 5 local companies. Not a single one of them picked up the phone. So step 1, pick up the phone, right? They put up a website, they put a phone number on there. They don't answer it. They leave a voicemail, and then I'm waiting for a call back. Hasn't happened yet. But so everything from the very first step of answering that phone, that introduction to your customer, that the process, the follow-up, the bundling, everything in here, again, is nothing that is too small that you want to address. And sometimes it's even outside of this. My wife, who has a dental practice, when we did this for her business model, she identified one that I didn't really think about. And hers was, the person is sitting at home, meaning that, I'm not going to go home until I call them and say, hey, how was your procedure today? Was everything okay? I want to make sure that you're good before I go home for the evening. And took a couple minutes of her time to call those patients, and tremendous value. It's like, wow, the doctor called me to make sure I'm okay before she went home. That's huge, right? It builds a brand, it builds a value, and it didn't add anything. And so what's going to happen when we do this, and we do this successfully? We will never compete on price, right? We compete because we built that brand. We're building a Rolex is what we're building. And that shouldn't be as a cause of COVID that you're doing this. But yes, it is challenging, and yes, it has caused these problems. And we are going to pivot to do that. And so with this thing, in order to make, as we're doing this, we don't just start throwing things in, because we got to, one, we can come up with some great idea here, pick a location, we can put in self-driving cars or something, but that's going to be too costly, right? It's not going to work. We're going to go out of business doing it. So the things that we do to add value also must meet our budget. So the tips that I can have for you during this COVID time to make sure that this is going to work for you is, first, we got to sit down and do your cycle, and then we're going to figure out how we're going to adapt to meet these new demands. Then we're going to go on a campaign to make sure we're communicating these, right? This stuff here needs to be communicated. On Friday afternoons, when I leave the TV2 building, I pass probably about 5 breweries. And when I want a cold drink on a Friday, I have no idea who's open. But the one that communicates to me to tell me they're open gets to see me on Friday, right? So that communication is huge. Yes, we're going to have to modify some hours in COVID. Know that we're going to have to do some cleanliness, and you make sure you leave yourself enough time to clean that environment, make it safe for yourself and your employees. So make sure we're communicating these hours, right? And again, think ahead. We're going to constantly this thing is not a stagnant thing we're going to put in place. We are going to be thinking about it. We're going to be thinking ahead of it. What technologies do we need? What do we need to be thinking about the next stage? How are we going to grow to the next level? And so we're constantly evaluating it, right? Protecting yourself and your employees. And then we're going to monitor this strategy. And then we're going to repeat. So it's kind of a do it, monitor it. If we did time to make some tweaks, we repeat it, right? And that's what we're doing. And then finally, what I want to leave you with to make this success is know that you do not have to do this by yourself. I myself don't know, I don't know everything. I rely heavily on my team, and I rely heavily on my network. I had a college professor that probably taught me one of the most important things, and when I was in the entrepreneurship course, is that you can only be as strong as your network. It says, yes, you can get there, and you can take the long road to get there and try to do it by yourself, but it's going to take me longer, right? I'm going to fall down a few more times. Why not lean and surround yourself with positive people that have the passion to help you move forward? And so you guys today are here at one of the strongest network opportunities. I mean, all of you that are on this, you guys are each other's network. You're all going through this together, and you're all sharing the same issues. Communicate with them, right? So that you are at the Temecula Chamber, which is your starting point. This chamber has a very strong network that is going to allow you access to a lot of things. Take advantage of them. Our team is made up of some really cool people that are experts in their given fields. So whether it's food, whether it's marketing, whether it's content, whether it's human resources, whether it's procurement, they're, a CPA, we have a team of people that are passionate to help. Yes, our services are free to you, the entrepreneur, you, the business owner, but that doesn't mean we're not free, right? Somebody's got to pay for it. And the people that are paying for that is your federal government and your local community partners. The chamber is one of them. And these caliber of people that you are having access to are high-ranking experts in what they're doing. So take advantage of it. Don't do it alone. We're here to help. In addition to those experts, we have links to resources, whether that be license and permits, whether that be training programs. We have a lot of different programs going on, or you need some funding options and you want to know what's out there. So whether that's a city grant, whether that's an SBA loan, other additional resources that you may need. So we are a link, and we are happy to help you. Finally, know that we are, a simple Zoom meeting away. So we can do this and assist you, work with you one-on-one in the comfort of your home, right? Log in, give us a call, and we're happy to help. So I'm really hoping that this is going to be more of a conversation this afternoon. So I wanted to make sure that we left a good amount of time to do some Q&A and some conversation. So Emily, if you don't mind opening up and see if these folks want to have some chat today.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Paul. I took 3 pages of notes. So I don't know about you guys. I do know you guys also must have taken so many notes. There was a lot of value and a lot of information that Paul shared, all very practical. And you know, one thing that came to mind for me, Paul, is that pivoting your business doesn't have to happen only in a time of crisis or trouble. Like, we are just seeing so much change throughout the world of commerce in general that every business has an opportunity to capitalize off of new tools, new ways of communicating with customers, the new habits of consumers. And some of us have even adopted some changes to our business thinking that it was temporary, but perhaps we should consider how to refine these things for the long term so that when business maybe does return, you know, closer to normal, like we knew it, now you can maybe double your revenue opportunities or retain more customers because you're offering them more convenience or different ways to engage with you. So per Paul's comments, let's go ahead and get into some chat. I encourage you guys to use the Q&A box, or you can use the chat box. So far, I haven't seen any questions come in. And I know all of you do have some really good questions out there. So Paul, just to get us started, I'm going to give you a sense of some of who I'm seeing in our audience today. And then we can talk about, you know, well, what I'm seeing just for starters is that we've got service professionals, everything from insurance to cleaning and restoration services. We've got some locations like co-working spots. We've got some retailers or people who sell an actual product. And so I have an overarching question for you. Mm-hmm. Do these principles apply equally to every industry and business?
Absolutely. Yes. I mean, you know, the key to it, and the key concept that I wanted people to understand is that small business in general can adapt and change and move so much more quickly. And the reason is that, you know, look at the example of Gerber baby food, right? So take Gerber baby food. That's $1 billion market that is addressed to who? They are trying to satisfy young mothers with their precious bundles of joy, right? Their entire market is focused on that. But, you know, and again, in doing that, they've done it in a way where it's like, okay, the packaging is directed towards trust, convenience, quality, you know, that stuff that they want to give to that fresh baby that they have. But the reality of it is how many of us in this room would be happy with a $2 million market? I'm okay with it.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
And so think about it. Who could eat baby food? You know, if you're willing to give it to this most precious thing in your life, this product, then I'm pretty sure all of us could eat it. Right. So baby food, who, you know, right. I could repackage it as Paul's baby food diet. Could I turn it into Paul's sport food? Could I turn it into, you know, food for people with jaw issues? I can adapt, pivot, make a product line that Gerber says, you know what, I don't have time for that little baby $2 million market. But we, the small businesses, do. And we can move faster, we can address the issues quicker, we can find the pains and solutions faster, and that's ongoing, and that's something that should always be happening. And so, yes, it applies equally, whether you're service, retail, healthcare, it applies to all.
So let me ask you this. This is like the elephant in the room question. And I think that you have some really unique insights because you're in the business of consulting with individual businesses and you coach them. But why do you think most businesses or many businesses don't pivot?
It's not that they don't want to, or that they, you know, again, congratulations, entrepreneur, you're the salesman, the bookkeeper, the janitor, all those things that I mentioned before. It's tough to go it alone, right? And it's tough to manage what we're doing and try to make that demanding, right? Because when do customers want it? They want it now. And what do they want to pay for it? Not a whole lot, unless we can build that value in that brand, right? To where we're not competing on price. So it's not that they don't want to, and I think that they do, and they do it slowly over time. But to do it quickly, it takes some effort, it takes some team, it takes some thought. And we as entrepreneurs sometimes can be a little stubborn and don't want to share that maybe we don't know everything, right? Because that's kind of a weakness. If I don't know it, I must be, well, that's not true. Because again, every one of these folks in this room, if they relied on each other and spoke to each other as a network, are going to find that we all face those same challenges. We might not all be experts at reading a P&L. We may not be all experts at, okay, pricing. Am I pricing right? Am I, sending the right message? So there's a lot of those moving parts within that pivot that's going to take. So it's not that they don't want to or aren't doing it. It's just that, they need some assistance, and that's what we're there to help.
And I want to, I couldn't agree with you more. I think that a lot of people know that they may need to make change, and they have a sincere interest in doing so. They just need the community and the guidance. And I guess a little bit of a shameless plug for both of us. The Temecula Valley Chamber of Commerce and SBDC, we don't exist to make a profit off of you. We exist to simply come alongside and help you. So for all of our attendees, if any of this message resonates with you, then we encourage you to just reach out, not be alone, and let us help you through the process, because we're your extended team. And if you are out and about shopping locally, which we encourage you to do, and you see a business that maybe hasn't fully adapted, connect them with us. Or if you see a really cool innovation, give them a shout out online, or share that with us too, because we want to brag about it and we want to share all of these great ideas. Paul, I don't know if you're going to have an answer to this question, but I'm just going to ask. There are a couple of industries that have been really hard hit as of recently. So restaurants went through a really challenging time, but they've been given some opportunity and blueprints for how to reopen, and we've seen a lot of them adapt. There are a couple of other industries where I feel like it's been more challenging. That would be personal care and like an event venue or someone who just has space. Have you seen any examples of how businesses have creatively pivoted those products or services? I mean, the Above and Beyond Beauty was a great example. Are there any others that you can think of?
I did some traveling recently in San Luis Obispo. Unfortunately, they have the much cooler weather than we do, but a lot of the personal services were out on the street, on the sidewalk, just like alongside the restaurants. So we were downtown, and they had closed off the streets, and they had all the restaurants out on the streets, and right next to them, it was hair getting done on the street, which is allowed, and it is allowed here. But it is quite hot, so we might want to get the big fog guy in there and maybe do different hairdos for the humidity or something, but maybe that's an option there. The events, yes, the events are outdoors. If we can get those, mimic those indoors to an outdoor venue and promote those outdoor venues, because that's really the only workaround. I mean, really the starting point is to get your industry guidelines, right, which are available via the chamber. So the chamber is happy to help them get their industry guidelines as a starting point. And then we, like I said, get out that whiteboard, get out that glass of wine, and let's go through those steps. There's always got to be a way to do it differently and maybe adapt. Maybe not to the greatest success that we had prior, but maybe it's the perfect time to test out something that we may be able to add to our product line when this all goes away, if hopefully sooner than later, right? Because like the mill, for example, they're not going to go away with their pizza kits after this.
Right.
In fact, I'm hoping that they're going to add their jalapeno mac and cheese one to this one. He won't give me that secret, but that's what I'm hoping, right? Can they add to those lines that aren't going to go away? And there are some that, again, in all honesty, are super struggling, and just got to just can't give up. We as entrepreneurs are stubborn. We never take no as a final answer. And that's the same thing you did when you started this business. When you first started, if I told you, you're never going to make it, you would look me in the face and say, yeah, I'm going to prove you wrong. Today is no different. And we got to have that same drive from the day we open.
Yeah. Excellent words of wisdom. You know, kind of following up, since I put you on the spot, I saw something really innovative that I thought a few different industries might be able to capitalize off of. And I was on TikTok, you know, the social media app, and there is a company in San Diego in the La Jolla area, and they they use a little plot of beach land, and they stick a really cute, nice umbrella in it, in the sand. And then underneath, they've got like little vintage blankets, and they set up a table made of like old pallets. And they put out some like boho pillows, and they create this really interesting setting. It's kind of like this juxtaposition. You're on the beach, but you have these bean bags and this beautiful vintage umbrella, and they have this table made out of crates, and then they have china laid out on the table. And in the center, they have these beautiful artisanal cheese boards, and they'll provide beverages, and they're selling it as a date package. And so you can book this spot for, I don't know, a couple of hours, whatever it is, and it comes with all these accoutrements. And I thought, oh my gosh, that is so brilliant. And I thought, who else could use that model? And perhaps someone who is in the personal care services industry, maybe your manicures, pedicures, hairstyling, maybe not in the dead of heat, but in the early dusk, if you could congregate some of your customers and set up stations in a really chic-y looking environment like that, using really inexpensive props, and you almost promote it as a, you know, it's a social and socially distanced hour where we're just doing girl stuff. We're getting our toes done. The person across from me is getting my hair done. But if you set the stage right, it becomes really innovative. It's an attractive environment. It's different, but I need these services done and I won't be alone. Maybe that could be more of a draw for people. So there are all sorts of ways to be thinking out of the box. That's just one random example. And I want to encourage everyone here on this call, if you're struggling with how do I get creative for my business, I'm just not running into any immediate ideas, reach out to Paul and his team. They do one-on-one consultations exclusively focused on your business and the realities facing your business. And they will help you create a plan, and they will walk through the journey with you to make sure that you can adopt new practices, and begin to thrive in new ways. So I'm not seeing any additional questions come in. So Paul, unless you have any closing comments, I'll close it out with some general chamber remarks, but I want to give you the mic one last time if there's anything else you'd like to share.
No, like I said, we're just a phone call away. Happy to help. You can reach us via Emily or through directly us. We're here in Temecula at the TV2, as well as on Wednesdays at the chamber. Happy to meet with any of you folks. You know, and again, congratulate you guys on being here, being part of one of the strongest chambers and strongest networks out there. So, you know, come on, let's move it forward. Small businesses.
Thank you, Paul. And you touched on something incredibly important that we just can't forsake or say enough, and that is the power of shopping local. You know, certainly there are some really big box businesses that are extremely convenient and serve us all well, but if and when you can, look for a new local business to shop with. We have everything from curated hair products to distilled whiskeys and hand sanitizers all over the place, to custom-made furniture. I mean, there just isn't anything you could possibly need that you couldn't possibly find within our city limits. And if you just don't know where to start, reach out to the chamber and we'll be happy to make some recommendations for you. With that, we're gonna start to close out. I do hope that some of you will join us tonight. We have our evening mixer at 4 p.m. You can still register on our website. We've got about 80 registered to attend already, which is great networking for you guys. Tonight's mixer is being sponsored by Noon and Associates, CPAs, so we are grateful to them for this opportunity, but we hope to see you there at 4 o'clock today. Thank you everyone for attending. We'll send out some notes, and Paul, can I share a copy of this presentation in our follow-up?
Absolutely.
Awesome. All right. Thank you guys. Have an amazing Wednesday and a strong finish to the rest of your week. Bye everyone.
Bye.